You'll hear that. There you go. I want to be able to make this available to anybody who has to, was not able to attend this. Again, I'm Chris Sundberg. I'm Executive Director of Elder Voice Advocates. And we, about 2 years ago, created a new program called Disability Voice Advocates, or DiVA by short. And we this year we started planning to focus on the waiver reimagine issues and fighting the plan changes that the Department of Human Services is working on. And then when we saw the governor's budget proposals a week ago with a recommended 1.3 billion reduction in the senior and disability areas, we obviously have to address that issue as well. Just to let you know, a few of our leaders, the DiVA leaders, are also on this today. Lisa Vala she's waving her hand there. Thank you. And Kelly Friesen is driving, but is and Trisha
No, you didn't. No,
somewhere
you
there.
thought you did.
Okay.
And when you get home, I'm taking your phone too.
Okay.
And the meeting is, I'm
Carrie,
gonna be taking your phone.
Alexis, could you
okay,
mute
I'll try.
your,
Yeah,
thank you.
we've got a few
I'm
people
taking your phone.
there. Okay. Are we okay now? Okay. That here. So those are a few of our folks. We've got a special guest with us here today, and that is Ellen Smart. And Ellen is with Legal Aid, and she's gracious enough to give us an overview of the impact from some of these proposals. And then after that, we'll get into our strategy discussion about how we're going to tackle these issues. So I'll turn it over to you, Ellen, and thank you. And you introduce yourself because you got a great background too.
Thanks for having me. I'm Ellen Smart. I'm with Legal Aid and the Legal Services Advocacy Project. I've been with Legal Aid for 25 years. The first 22 years I spent as a benefits attorney, doing health care and unemployment benefits and social security cases and kind of all the cash programs. And then this will be my third session as a legislative advocate. So most of the work I do now is with the Minnesota Disability Law Center, which is part of Legal Aid, and then unemployment compensation. So it's been a steep learning curve, but it's been really fun. Not so much this session, but with all the drama. But I'm here to talk today about the governor's budget cuts, which we're trying to get up to speed on. So bear with me because there's still a few that we do not understand. So I put together a PowerPoint. I'll see if I can make this happen. If not, we'll just talk through them. So give me just a sec.
Let me share a screen.
Oh, let's see. It says
not my screen.
It says a request has been sent to share.
Hold on.
I needed to do that.
There you go.
Ooh. I am not the most savvy person about this stuff. Let's see.
I've proven myself not savvy, so.
Okay. Can you see? Okay.
Perfect.
And I want to, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. And can you see all the little slides on the side too? Or does it look?
Nope. We can see all the slides too.
Wow.
If you hit slideshow at the top, keep going, slideshow. Transitions, animations, slideshow. If you hit that, it should give you.
Custom slideshow from beginning.
Yep.
Fancy. All right. Thank you. I don't do many of these. So I could skip that one. So as I said, I'm from the Legal Services Advocacy Project, and even though we're housed at Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid, which is in Minneapolis, we represent all the legal aid organizations throughout the state and take input from all the legal aid. So somebody, in International Falls could call us and say, I've got an idea for a new law, or I hate this law, can you do something about it? And we represent all the legal aid organizations. So just if you're confused, you want to read about what's in the budget, you can just search for Minnesota Governor Budget 2026, probably take you to this page. And if you scroll down, it'll say governor's recommendations by agency. And most of what we'll talk about today is in human services. So then you just hit that, go to human services, you can scroll down and find what you're looking for. So there's 5 areas we'll talk about today with budget cuts. All 4 of them are in human services and one's in special education. And let's talk about that one. We'll talk about the special education one first, just to knock it out. Oh, what happened here? There we go.
You can watch our full recovery.
So the first one's a cut to special education transportation reimbursement.
Big Ten women's hoops and a first.
And what this does is it's going to push 5% of the cost of special ed transportation back onto the school districts. And from the language, it appears to attempt to discourage the use of expensive contracted providers in favor of in-house providers. Again, it's really difficult just to see exactly what they're doing because this is in very, very vague language. All of the recommendations, they're not in statute yet. So there's a couple of these that we'll see in this presentation where we don't really know what the intent is or what they're getting at, but they'll be noted in the presentation. Like, we have no idea what they're about. So that was the only one that was in special ed. The rest of these will all be in human services. Okay, so the rest of these mostly have to do with the waiver rates. Sorry. So the first section is about rate exceptions and input monitoring. And in each section, they've got bulleted items about what they're trying to do. And we'll go through each of these in more detail. So the first one is putting parameters on leave days that residential services can bill for. So it used to be that you could automatically bill for, there was a built-in 14 leave days. So if a client was only at a residential service for 330 days, they could bill for 344 days because there's that extra 14 days. So if a client was there all 365 days, the residential setting could bill for 379. Now there's a maximum of 351. So even if the client's there for all 365 days, the facility's only getting paid for 351. So what that means is that's going to be a steep decrease in funding that these residential services are going to receive in this. It's mostly group homes and family residential settings. Also, they're going to crack down on increased rates, and there's rate exceptions that are usually used when trying to transfer people out of hospitals or when people have extraordinary needs. It doesn't appear from the language that this is going to be a big problem at the time of the implementation. It looks like they're trying to crack down on renewals. So instead of just continuing to renew, like grandfathering people into these rates, it looks like they're going to try to crack down and make sure that there's kind of still a issue that they want rather than just renewing them. It looks like the language wasn't being renewed as often as the state would like, and so they're going to try to decrease some of these exceptional rates for high behavior needs that way. Again, this is one we don't understand very well. It's this positive supports being billed as a distinct service. All we can guess at is that maybe the positive supports billing was being billed separately. So maybe we're guessing maybe some residential services were almost double dipping instead of billing for the regular rate and then just the extra positive supports. We cannot figure out what this is until we see it actually in statute. We're not quite understanding this one yet. And then this is another one we don't understand, the exceptions with requests for increased community time and transportation, shifting into the framework components. I see a hand up.
Yes, this
Uh,
is Carla. I have a question about that previous slide. When you said probably didn't understand it, and I can almost bet you that Governor Walz doesn't understand it either. I'm just wondering where it's coming from. I mean,
Yeah.
is there, who in the heck would dream that up in the human services? Do you know that?
Somebody at DHS is advising him on this, but some of these are pretty obvious, like the one that we talked about earlier, with the renewals, this one, the exceptions, they all have, most of them, not even all of them, have some kind of description in the, on the website that talk about kind of the issue. Some of them have very little description, like it'll just say like what the line item is, and that's it. Like, well, duh, like you should be able to figure it out. And some of them have some description, like this one with the renewals really talk a lot about renewals and how renewals shouldn't be taken for granted. And then when we get down to this one, it was like, well, duh, exceptions with requests for increased community time. Like, and that's the one that nobody understands. So some of them have very good descriptions and some of them don't. And until we actually see the language and how they're going to change the statutes, we really don't know what they're talking about. And this is one of them. I looked at that. The policy director for DLC looked at that. We had a conversation with the policy director for ARM, and we're all a little confused as to what this one means. So the next item is all about residential services. And there's 4 topics in that one. And the first one is limiting access to customized living services. And this means assisted living, basically. And this one we don't hate. I mean, we think it's aimed at keeping people under 55 out of assisted living. And so it's kind of aimed at keeping younger individuals in group home settings or setting up services to keep them in their own homes. But anybody who's also already in an assisted living setting gets to stay there. Then there's establish a county share of 5% for residential services. And we believe that this is to provide a disincentive for counties to move people into residential services and to provide incentive for them to set up services to keep people in their own homes. Again, I don't know if this is necessarily bad. I think setting up services to keep people in their own homes is labor intensive, and it might be easier if you can find a placement to just find a placement, because then that's fewer services that the county has to set up. I think maybe sometimes that might be easier if you can find a placement. So I don't necessarily think this one is bad. So this one, the residential overnight staffing reform study, this is one that's going to cost money. So the law right now says if one person objects to overnight staffing, like in a group home, it cannot happen. So the budget proposal wants to create teams to look at whether overnight staffing is truly needed. I don't know why. I mean, before the statute was proposed, was last year, the year before. I mean, I don't know why they're trying to reinvent the wheel with this one. They just changed the statute. We just have this agreement that if one person objects, it cannot happen. I'm not sure why now they want to do a study. This one makes no sense to me, why they'd want to change it at this point. But okay, if they want to spend money on a study, okay. So the next one is about day and unit-based services. And these are just the topics we'll discuss. So this one is to provide a limit of 8 hours of individualized home supports with training services. And these are the types of services, like someone will come into your house and it's not like a PCA who will cook for you, or individualized home supports without training services where someone cooks for you. This is, you know, somebody works with you to maybe help you cook or help you make your bed, you know, that focuses on living skills to help you become independent. And it used to be that you could do 16 hours a day. The problem is, you know, if somebody's working towards goals and then get some of those hours taken away and they're in more of a residential setting, it means it might mean that they're less likely to be able to transition to a less restrictive setting. And also, if you are living on your own and trying to like build up strength and build up skills to need less staffing, especially if you're in a rural area, let's say that you were getting 11 hours of individualized home supports with training services, and now they're saying, nope, you've got a cap of 8 hours now. You're going to have to fill in the other 3 hours PCA services. Especially if you're in a rural area, yeah, good luck finding a PCA to just come in for that extra 3 hours. And especially what makes this hard is that the IHS providers and the PCA providers, they aren't the same agencies. So now people are going to have to work with 2 agencies. So this one's a bummer. I mean, it's just the practical, I get what they're saying, like, do you really need that expensive level of support? But the practical applications of this are going to be awful. So the update absence and utilization, I can't say this one, update absence and utilization factor in day services. So this is a lot like the 351-day rule. It used to be that the daily rate was multiplied by 9.4% to make up for absences, and now they're saying it's 3.9. So day programs are going to be taking a big financial hit. So this is like a day programs version of the 351-day rule. Lisa?
So my question is, day programs will be hit with this utilization and absence factor reduction, as well as the DWS inflation thing from 6 to 2%. Is that correct? Bummer. Okay.
Yeah, this is awful. What we heard was that this is worse than the inflation cap for these programs. This is even worse. Another thing they're looking at is creating a new rate for night supervision, asleep overnight services. I don't understand this one. If you're being, you know, if you need to go and sleep overnight at somebody's house because they can't be alone, you're still on call if something happens. The budget doesn't say what the new rates are going to be. I get that you're doing less work if you're actually active overnight, but you're still there for this person. And, you know, we just heard testimony this week from the direct care and treatment staff that said that we have a shortage of 58,000 healthcare workers in the state, and offering people a lower rate now, I don't see how that's going to help, but I get where they're coming. I mean, if you get to go and sleep on your job, I understand that, but I don't know. It's just my 2 cents. I don't know how this is going to help create. I don't know how this is going to create incentives for people to take these healthcare jobs. Lisa?
So the way I understand this, Ellen, is that there would be 2 different rates now. Right now, night supervision is all paid at the same rate. But with this, there would be a sleep overnight rate, which I know my provider pays the people who sleep overnight $7, the federal minimum wage, 7.25 or something, versus an awake overnight physician would be paying more per hour, I believe.
Yeah, I just don't, it's hard for me to wrap my head around, you know, we're having a hard enough time attracting people to these positions. So offering somebody less to do an overnight shift, which can't be an attractive shift to take, it's hard for me to understand how that wouldn't exacerbate the healthcare worker shortage, but we'll see. Carla?
could we go back just a minute to that one about assisted living? And I'm not necessarily sure I know what it's about, but I have been studying the Olmstead Act, and the Olmstead Act would certainly be in contradiction to placing people in an assisted living. I think people much prefer to be in their own home. Does that counteract
this
what
one?
that person is saying?
The one that keeps people under 55 out of assisted living settings?
The one, yeah, word in that there's a problem. Yeah, we probably do want to keep people out of assisted living because they want to stay in their homes from the Olmstead Act, which is to implement
Absolutely.
that. Is that a problem, or am I misreading it?
No, I think it's good. The one about keeping people under 55 out of assisted living settings, I think is good. So they're limiting access to customized living services for people under 55. Is that the one you were
Oh.
talking about?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Okay.
Trisha?
So one of the things I think about as we go through all of these is what do each of these proposed cuts do to help individuals stay in their own home and live a more independent lifestyle in their own home or in the least restrictive type setting? And I think when you look at it from that perspective, that's when I get a little more concerned about what the intent is behind all of these. I know you talk about how we're not sure what their intention is here. Well, we know that their intention is to save money.
Yeah.
Where is the intention to keep people in their own homes living a life of choice? That's where I kind of want to frame it as we, consider all of these. And Ellen, thank you so much for explaining this. I really do appreciate it.
Well, I think some of them do, like the one where they're putting 5% of the costs onto the counties. That one definitely is trying to provide an incentive for people to stay in their own homes by saying, look, we're going to put 5% of the cost of group homes onto the counties. So maybe you want to consider services for people staying in their own homes. There are definitely a couple of those in here. Most of
Yeah,
them,
I get concerned. Is that really what that's going to do? I can see
mean,
the intention might be, but is that
yes.
really how it's going to work out?
I hope so, but who knows? Yeah. So this is the one that's this is the one that's going to push people over the edge. This is the cap on inflationary adjustments. This is the one that you can see is going to take the biggest bite. I mean, it's going to save the most money, 160 million in the first biennium, 482 in the second biennium. So right now we've actually, costs actually rise with the actual inflation rate. Programs were expecting an 11% adjustment in 2026. And now we're going to tell them, so sorry, you had budgeted, because people usually budget ahead. I mean, most organizations do. You're expecting 11, you get 2. So as I said before, the Department of Direct Care and Treatment just testified this week in the Senate that Minnesota is short 58,000 caregivers as of this month. This is not going to help. And I was talking to Sarah Grafstrom at ARM, and she was saying some businesses and facilities are already paying their employees more than they're getting reimbursed for just to retain staff. And because they knew this, they were going to get this adjustment coming up in 2026, and they thought that, well, they could at least maintain until then. And so they just got the rug pulled out from under them. And, it's my personal soapbox, but direct care workers are disproportionately women, 76%, and people of color. And so this proposal also exacerbates these disparities. I'm unhappy. So this is the worst of the bunch. So the good news is that this isn't over. Nobody likes these cuts in either party. There have been some really strong messages coming from the Senate on both sides. Kind of like, are you kidding? Some, like Hubert Humphrey be rolling in his grave type, quotes coming from senators on both sides of the aisle. The session's still young. Legislators want to hear from people and try to get involved.
Thank you,
So,
Ellen.
Good
So
luck.
Well, and thank you to Legal Aid for working with us, because together we'll be a lot more stronger. And again, we're going to need to tell our stories. They need to see us. They need to see how this really impacts everybody. We'll get into our strategy discussion in a little bit, but I wanted to make sure if there's any other questions that we want to ask Ellen. Ellen, this is extremely helpful.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Lisa.
Can we get a copy of your slideshow?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I will I just email it to you, Chris. You can send it to whoever you
Yeah.
want to.
Yep, exactly. Katrin, go ahead.
Hi there, we had a question in the chat. Does the elimination of the budget exception include CDCS individual budgets?
That's a really good question. I'm just looking back at there's one slide where I wrote down exactly which. There's one slide where I wrote down exactly which waivers were called out.
It didn't say anything about
And it didn't
CDCS on
say
that slide, I don't think. There you
It
go.
didn't.
Because CDCS is not the waiver, it is it's
Yeah.
the way to access it.
And that already takes a 30% hit. I have to say, I don't know. Interesting. I'm sorry, I have no idea. Because it has to be 30% less than what you would get on a traditional program. I don't know if they just plan to reduce it from there. I don't know.
Sultry music, scented candles.
So if I could just
I'd say someone was either hoping for a romantic.
ask a question about that, I know when I looked at it, it said CRS budget exceptions. So the congregate care facilities have the ability to request a budget exception for their daily rate. But I was unclear if they were also going to halt the budget exception process for people using CDCS. That was a question I had that I haven't been able to get answered yet.
Oh,
I don't know. CDCS was not mentioned. Like the letter CDCS was not in this budget at all. I've not mentioned. So I don't know how it would be
Yeah.
affected. I assumed it would
but
go
it
down
just-
kind of
yeah.
accordingly.
It said budget exceptions. So there's budget exceptions for both. So that was concerning to me.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, you have your hand up?
Yeah, this is Kelly Friedman, and on the Waiver Reimagine Advisory Committee, they have made it clear that CDCS is going away. So that is possibly why we haven't had any instruction or direction in this language, but they are just saying it's going to be self-directed, and they're really not being clear on what that means either. So that's a big concern, and they have assured us there's going to be budget exceptions, but it'd be difficult to get them. So I think these are all really good questions, and another reason why we all need to band together and really put the pressure on our state to make sure that these changes don't affect people in a seriously negative way.
Thank you. Carla.
yes, this is kind of a strange question, but do most of these involve or not involve seniors? at all? Not senior in high school, but seniors. That seems to be caddy, and some of those really don't affect seniors, do they? It seems like most of it's for services for younger persons. Or am I reading that wrong?
Well, some of the services do affect seniors also, but I'd say these cuts take aim more at disabled persons.
Dawn, I think you've got your hand up.
So did you say Dawn? Sorry.
Dawn, yes, Dawn.
Okay. Yes, thank you. So one of the things as a support planner and a family who uses waivered services, it's my understanding from my conversations as a support planner with DHS is that CDCS isn't going away. It's just not going to be called that. There are still going to be direct or consumer directed services. But then we also have to remember that CDCS is not a waiver. CDCS is the way I access a DD waiver or a CAC waiver or a CADI waiver or a BI waiver. So if my son is on a DD waiver, but I'm using the CDCS format, it is going to be affected because the DD waiver is going to be affected. That's how it's been explained
Okay,
to
that's
us.
good to know.
Well, go ahead, Ellen.
Oh, I'm just so, this kind of world is very new to me because I just, this is my third session. And this whole waiver reimagined, I mean, when this was supposed to start, and I'm just wondering if it's ever going to happen.
I'll let Lisa or Kelly respond to that one.
I'm just so
Or Tricia,
confused
or
about
anybody
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, this is Kelly. It is happening. It's just rolling out slowly, and it's rolling out through the guise of we're just going to do what we're going to do. And we've asked the question very clearly in the Waiver Reimagine Committee, what is CDCS going to look like? And they have said it is going away. And I understand it's a way to access the program, but it'll just be called self-directed. And no matter right now, if you're living in the community or a residential center, you're supposed to be able to access the self-direction of the services, but they also won't tell us how that will affect our budget. So there's a lot of miscommunication going on clearly by DHS staff. And we really need to get to the truth, but don't be fooled. This is happening. Things are changing right under our nose. It's just not being very clear.
This might be a good place for us to tell everybody about the legislation that we are going to introduce. Lisa, do you want to do
I can take a shot at it, and others from the leadership team can join in. So, Waiver Reimagine, for those of you who are not real familiar, is a DHS project to consolidate the 4 Medicaid waivers into 2 waivers. So the DD waiver, brain injury, CAC, and CADI waivers will be gone, and you will be assigned a waiver based on where you live. So you'll be either living independently if you live in your own home or in your family home, or you'll be living with residential services if you live in a group home, CRS, any kind of corporate care. Then once you have one of these 2 waivers based on your MinChoices assessment and where you live, you will be assigned an individual budget, and your budget will be capped. So those of you on a traditional waiver right now have an uncapped budget. If you need something, you pretty much get it. That will be gone. So your budgets will be capped. And if you compare a person who has the same need living in their own home versus living in a group home, their budget for their own home will be about half of the budget they would receive if they lived in care. So that violates a lot of things like the Olmstead Promise. It violates Minnesota's independent living first statute, and the ADA integration mandate. DHS doesn't care. They're moving forward with it anyway. And so DiVA has worked to put together some legislation. And I think, Chris, you told me it's now in 2 bills. Is that correct?
Oh, that's the intent. It's still all together, but
Okay. So right now we have a 2-pronged bill. The first is asking for a legislative task force to study Waiver Reimagine and related elements like the min choices assessment, which is also problematic. That's the first prong of the legislation. The second prong is to make sure that waivers budgets are not based on where a person lives. Okay. And it also, in this legislation, takes the approval moving forward to submit this to the federal government from DHS to either the task force or to the legislators. So they would have to submit their plan if the task force passes to the task force, and if not, to the human service legislators for approval of that before they can move forward. So trying to put some gates up to make sure that, you know, we have good stuff moving forward.
I guess I would just add that we realize asking for a legislative task force, which costs money, is a tough sell this session and is likely probably not to happen. So what we are doing to hopefully, get a third set of eyes on this is asking for a legislative audit of the Waiver Reimagine program. And if any of you have seen the reports coming from the legislative auditor, they're very powerful, they're very effective, and that can help us make change too. So okay, Kathy, I think you got your hand up, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, is all the legislative changes you're talking about at the state level? And as far as how all of this being affected by the federal level?
We're talking today about the state legislature. So you realize, we just don't have the bandwidth to address congressional issues. So.
And what's driving the changes at the state level? Is it the change in leadership at the legislature? What's driving the change?
Well, I don't know that it's the legislature. I think it's Department of Human Services. And, Kelly and Tricia, who are part of the Waiver Reimagine Advisory Committee, can talk to that. Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, this has actually been going on since 2017, when what we've been told is DHS was given a direction from the feds to make some changes to make the waivers more simple. And so a study was done from a company that came back with a recommendation to change to 2 waivers. So this has been in play for many years, and it started with phase 1, and then after phase 1, the Waiver Reimagine Advisory Committee was created. But we're currently in phase 2, and the unfortunate thing is that there is not a lot of the committee's input being implemented into anything that we're aware of, because it's not transparent. We really don't know what our input impact is having, but it doesn't appear to be much, because a lot of the questions we are asking are not coming out in a positive legislative change or things that we're seeing on the website. So I hope that answers your question.
I'd like to add that additionally, when we spoke in front of the committee last year, group of stakeholders, some Waiver Reimagine committee members, other waiver recipients, spoke and explained concern and said DHS is not listening to us. And the Senate committee very sternly encouraged Natasha Mers and DHS to to hold on and to take a minute and listen to what we were saying. And it appears that they look like they paused things, but they are moving forward. For example, CDCS unbundling, if you've heard of that, it seems to be doing a lot of what they were intending to do with the waiver. So despite the Senate committee even saying, wow, DHS, you guys really aren't listening to what people need, the governor is listening to what DHS says. So I think we just really need to bring to his attention that DHS is not representing the best interest of the people at all, especially people with disabilities. And he does not understand how heavily this will impact. I certainly hope it's because he doesn't understand how heavily this will impact Minnesotans with disabilities.
Well, we'll make sure that he does understand. And I want to remind everybody, and Ron can speak to this a lot. And by the way, I just want to introduce Ron Elwood from Legal Aid. He's an accomplished lobbyist. And so thank you, Ron, for being here. And thank you for being interested. Together, I think we can make a difference here. It's the legislature that will finally drive the budget. So that's where we need to put our focus, is on the legislature. Now, we're just starting to organize ourselves now. So what we'll be doing is we will send out a backgrounder, a position statement to give you all more information on our views and the impact, etc. We'll also provide you with some key messages so you can use that when you're talking to your legislators. And we're happy to help you, identify, get the contact information that you'll need. Then whenever session starts, the bills will be heard. We'll send out an alert to let you know when a hearing is going to happen. That's when it's going to be really important for everybody to come to the Capitol if at all possible. They need to see our faces. They need to hear our voices, and we'll work toward that. So we're also building our coalitions. We're talking to more disability organizations just to build our unified voice. And, so we'll be talking as much as I've got a call into the governor's office. So far it's been ignored, but we'll keep on trying. But right now our focus is the legislature. So all I can guarantee you is that we'll get you more information. We'll help you. Feel free to reach out to me, to Lisa, to Kelly, Tricia, and we'll happy to get you more help as you need it. But are there any questions or other comments on that? I see Dawn. Go ahead, Dawn.
Sorry to be a pest. One
No.
of the things I'm thinking of is I serve on the Council on Disability.
Yep.
And I know we've got our legislative day that was just or our agenda just put off. But have you been working at all with Trevor, and so that we can work jointly on the same message?
He's on my list. Haven't gotten there, but I will be. And
You tell me what I need to do to help you connect you to Trevor, because like I said, I have Trevor's ear as a member of the council.
yeah, just connect us via email, Dawn. I'd appreciate that.
Awesome. Got it done.
I love it. Good. Marjorie, you're on mute. Yeah, I can. There you go.
It's kind of my belief that the legislature is overspent in other areas, and DHS is a huge organization, and it's easy to point to them and their inefficiencies, and they are many. as we all know. And that's what's driving this. And I think our best, our best action is to, just be as loud as we can about these cuts and what they're going to mean to people. But I don't think, I guess I just don't think that Waltz is innocent in this whole thing.
No, no, I agree with you. And, his actions are telling us quite a bit, but nonetheless, our focus has to be on the legislature. They're the ones that are gonna right this wrong. Tricia, go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's correct. That's correct.
Tricia?
I see Nadine, you talked to Senator Hoffman today. Senator Hoffman has heard from us several times and he is well aware of what we're doing, but that does not mean that we do not want to flood everyone with our concern for this. So please keep it up. And yes, we are hoping that Senator Hoffman will continue to be a champion for our work.
And we also talked last week, Lisa invited Representative Lisa.
Representative Noor. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And he chairs or will co-chair whatever the House side, and he's very on board. He's very supportive. He and Hoffman work very closely together. So, and this is not a party issue. This has nothing to do with being Republican or Democrat. This is about basic civil rights. So, my humble opinion. So we're going to keep you in the loop. You're going to hear from us more and more as the legislature starts to get their act together and starts working. And feel free to reach out to any of us, but any last minute questions, comments?
So Lisa here, there are like 50 people on this call and we are trying to get organized. So in the chat is a Google form, a link to a Google form. If you would be willing to open up that form right now, copy and paste that right in your browser and fill it out. This will help us know like what legislative district you live in. Are you willing to meet with your legislator? Do you want help with that? Will you come to a hearing? Do you want to get more involved? So please, if you're willing to fill that out, you're not signing up for anything. You're just sharing your information.
You're free to do. Thank you, Lisa. I almost forgot that important piece. So we'll give you a little time to go ahead and fill that out. So, and good, Debbie's talking about also meeting with Senator Hoffman. So, and as Tricia said, more the merrier. We got to flood them.
I think it's important to remember too that our legislators don't really understand, most of them do not understand how waivers work and what they mean to Minnesotans with disabilities. For all the issues that we may have and all the fraud that is out there, it is not the individual recipients who are necessarily causing the problems. And so I think that that's what gets media attention. I think we can tell our legislators that that's not the case. The case is typically that we are living, individuals with disabilities in Minnesota are living more independently and a life of choice because of these waivers often. So I think that just educating them a little bit on what a waiver means to you, and the people of Minnesota is helpful too. And again, if you need help with any of that language, we're here to help you.
And we'll send another newsletter out and we'll have, Tricia and Kelly and Lisa and mine and some other contacts that you can reach out to get additional help and information. with that, are we about ready to conclude?
Can I add one more thing, Chris?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep, just to touch on what Tricia just said, I've also reached out to my local senators and representatives, and they have told me, like, when they voted back in 2020 and 2021, they said we are trusting that DHS is coming to us with your input and your best interest in mind. So if DHS gives them a suggestion to vote yes on a bill, they're going to do it if they don't have the truth. So I've been keeping my local people updated too, and they're very thankful, even though they're not on the Human Services Committee. Eventually they're going to get a chance to vote and make their voice heard. So just because somebody has a different letter behind their name doesn't mean they don't deserve to be educated. So reach out to your people.
Thanks. Catherine?
Hi, so I just wanted to say that I have been talking off and on to DHS about Waiver Reimagine since 2018, letting them know how the changes in the Waiver Reimagine self-directed budgets compared to the CDCS program will affect people, especially and specifically people on CAC waiver who receive home care nursing. And so I've made it clear to DHS and I've demonstrated mathematically how it will cost taxpayers more money and how it will reduce folks living independently in their own homes, in their own communities, and being forced into congregate care institutional facilities. So DHS knows, and they haven't really had an impetus to make change. So, and I think it's important too that we not just contact Hoffman and Abler, but we are contacting the individuals that represent us specifically and letting them know how Waiver Reimagine is going to impact us as individuals. And also just for the question about elderly waiver and AC, there are people on CADI, CAC, BI, and DD that are over 65 years of age. They just didn't go on to AC or EW. So it does affect people over the age of 65 because those folks are able to stay on those waivers after they turn 65.
Go ahead, Marjorie.
Just to clarify, the governor's budget is making these decisions based on input from DHS. Am I understanding this correctly?
Probably.
Okay.
But again, it's the legislature that's going to make the final decision.
Oh, correct. I just need to have my ducks in a row and know
Yep.
how this is working. I've been an advocate and I've been to DHS and I know how they operate and it's scary.
We've just started our fight. This was kind of our launch here. And so we'll keep in the loop. Any of your ideas, thoughts, whatever, please pass them our direction. And let's thank you very much for everybody's attention. This recording will be posted on our website and I'll get the link out so you can share it with others because I think Ellen gave us great information and our discussion's been really helpful. Thank you. With that, I think we'll say goodbye. Take care. Bye-bye.